Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday, April 14th, council meeting starting at 5:25 p.m. This is our electronic meeting, electronic meeting, not muting. And I'd like to call to order this meeting and acknowledge that we are meeting on the shared traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. I am going to unmute everyone, and I'm just going to do a quick roll call. So if you could all please let me know that you're here, and there we go. So roll call. Councillor Baxter.
Here.
Councillor Day.
Here.
Councillor Jensen.
Present.
Councillor Kobayashi.
Here.
Councillor Parkinson.
Present.
And myself, Mayor Martin. Oh, excuse me. Oh, and I'm sorry. Somehow I missed Councillor Logan. You're
not here.
Sorry about Councillor Logan. Moving on, I apologize for this, everybody. Sort of learning everything. I'm just going to go to my agenda. So we've called to the order for approval of the agenda for the regular council meeting of April 14th. May I have a mover?
Move. So moved.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by
So moved.
sorry, Councillor Jensen, I believe. Sorry, Councillor Jensen, your face is just being blocked there for a moment for me. Any errors, or excuse me, I'll call the question. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion carries. Public participation. Please see the important notice at the top of this agenda for opportunities to participate. So I'm just going to read this for the public, just so that they are aware. You have ways that you can participate. We know that this is a new way of conducting business and have proactively put in place the following two options to ensure we can continue to hear from the public on matters that are important to you. You may provide written comments to corporate services at colwood.ca up to noon of the day of the council meeting where the item is being considered. Your communication will be presented to council for consideration. You can also, pre-register to speak to council or committee during public participation by sending an email to corporate services at colwood.ca prior to noon on the day of the meeting. We will respond and provide you instructions on how to dial into the electronic meeting. Saying that, I do not believe we had any public participation for today, which will move us straight on to Mayor's message. And Mayor's message, there are several things that I would just like to bring people up to speed with. Again, because we're meeting at 5:15, this was not the detailed Mayor message that I was planning on presenting. The detailed Mayor's message will be on April 27th, but I did want to do some updates for you. First of all, in regard to waste management, many of the city's public garbage cans were closed temporarily at the outset of the pandemic to limit the spread of infection through high-contact, high-risk public services and to allow public work staff to focus on priority COVID-19 response activities. Maintenance of the 196 garbage cans throughout the city takes upwards to 24 hours per week to maintain. Garbage cans are being reopened as staff make the rounds this week, and we should see all be reopened for public use by the end of this week. Supporting each other during this time and how to be healthy with your physical distancing. We all know the important actions that we can take to stay close to home and maintain that 2 meters or about 6 feet of physical distance from each other. This means that if two adults extend their arms to their sides, there should be space between them, and their hands should not touch. While paying strict attention to this requirement, getting fresh air and exercise around your own neighborhood is important. As Dr. Henry has said, it's important that we continue to look after ourselves. So please be kind in doing this, stay calm, and please stay safe. In addition, excuse me just for a moment, I'm just gonna mute you all there for a sec. In addition, city operations. will have continued on, and I did want the public to know what is going on from a city operations standpoint. City operations continue with some modifications to protect against the spread of COVID-19. Access to City Hall is by appointment only. Development services, engineering, and building services continue to assist with construction projects as major development continues throughout Colwood. Long-range planning is currently focusing on emergency operational planning, as well as ongoing master planning projects. Corporate services has implemented an electronic meeting process, including options for remote public participation, and continues to support city governance. The finance team is developing budget options and forecasting COVID-19 impacts and recovery strategies, while continuing to provide an ongoing financial services required for city operations. The fire department and bylaw teams continue to provide emergency response and protective services for the city. And the public works team is prioritizing COVID-19 responses with respect to closures and cleaning procedures, as well as ongoing maintenance, repair, and seasonal operations. In addition, the final thing that I just wanted to mention about tonight was also about economic recovery. The city has distributed a survey asking Colwood business owners what they need from us during this crisis and how we can help them prepare for economic recovery. Dozens of responses have already been received. I encourage all Colwood businesses to take a moment to provide that input. The city has also invited representatives of local businesses, development, and construction organizations to a recovery roundtable virtual meeting on April 23rd. This meeting will be chaired by Councillor Kobayashi as a first of a series of meetings designed to share information that will be used to build the foundation of our economic recovery here in Colwood. I'm going to unmute you all and give you an opportunity if there's anything else that anyone else would like to contribute during Mayor's message. This is your opportunity. And for some reason, it's not letting me unmute, but you people know how to unmute yourselves, so I'm going to let you unmute yourselves. Is there anybody? Sorry, I apologize, everybody, if you don't mind me holding. How do I tell if somebody puts up their hand virtually? Oh, in their screen? Okay.
Just for your information, I don't have the option to put up hand electronically anymore.
Okay. What we'll do then is I will try and pay attention to everybody. So Cynthia, just keep waving, and I'll try and catch you that way as well. We are going to move on then. I'm looking for adoption of minutes, and there are. Excuse me, I'm sorry, my corporate officers. Okay. Great. Okay, so 5.1, which is the regular council meeting minutes of March 9th. May I have a mover and seconder, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Kobayashi. Are there any errors, omissions, questions? Seeing none, are there any in opposition? Hearing none, that is accepted. Then moving on, I'm going to look for a motion to receive all three committee of the whole minutes of February 3rd, February 18th, and February 25th, all in one motion. May I have a mover, please?
So moved.
I believe that was Councillor Jensen. Was that Councillor Jensen? No, it couldn't have been. He's muted. Must have been, who was that? Oh, it was Councillor Baxter. Councillor Baxter has moved it.
I'll second.
And second by Councillor Jensen. Are there any errors, omissions, questions? Seeing none. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, those are received unanimously. Moving on to 6.1, which is the Capital Regional District Bylaw number 4328, the Regional Growth Strategy Amendment reference for municipal acceptance. The recommendation coming from the Committee of the Whole was that the City of Colwood accept the Regional Growth Strategy Amendment proposed by CRD Bylaw number 4328. May I have a mover?
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kobayashi, seconded by Councillor Baxter. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Any opposed? Oh, and I'm sorry, now I see two hands are up. I see Michael. Okay, now I got it. Could I just confirm with Councillor Baxter and Councillor, I see your hands were up, but I believe those were passed. You weren't looking
Yeah,
to.
those were actually, mine was a while ago.
Okay, and Councillor Jensen, I just want to confirm this isn't anything now. Okay, thank you. Then I'll call the question. Any opposed? Hearing none, that is accepted. Moving on to 6.2, which is the Select Committee's term of reference. The Select Committee term of reference was considered at the Committee of the Whole meeting held April 4th. The recommendation was that the Select Committee term of reference be approved as amended as follows. That reword clause 6.6 hyphen E in the terms of reference for each Select Committee read, the chair will provide opportunities for members of the public to ask questions and offer points of information related to the agenda item after the introduction of each item of business. That we replace the word establish with recommend in clause 7E, J, L, N, and P of the terms of reference for the Finance and Governance Committee, and insert the words business and in front of the words development in clause 7A of the terms of reference for the Economic Prosperity Committee. May I have a mover and seconder, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Baxter. Any discussion? Hearing none. Is there anyone in opposition? Hearing none. That moves unanimously. Moving on to 6.3. Which is Director of Corporate Services, appointments for the West Shore Park and Rec Society. We are looking, there is a recommendation that we appoint someone to the West Shore Park and Rec Committee, and then I also need not only an appointment, but I also need excuse me, not a seconder, I'm going to make the motion that I'm going to recommend Councillor Parkinson be appointed to the West Shore Park and Rec board. Do I have a
I'll second.
Thank you. Councillor Kobayashi seconded that. I'm sorry, staff aren't in the room with me, but I'm assuming I can call the question. I don't need to look for other nominations. Or Councillor Day.
Thank you. Just procedurally, because of the electronic meeting, could I get people to mute themselves? I know we're trying to juggle papers, but it's making your voice cut out all the time.
Sure. You know what? I'll mute everybody again. Councillor Day. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Give me a thumbs up if that's better, Cynthia. Thank you. So I'm going to call the and then actually, and what I would also like to do is make a recommendation that we appoint Councillor Jensen as the alternate to West Shore Park and Rec. So I guess I would look for that as one motion. Councillor Baxter has moved that motion, and Councillor Logan has seconded that. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those, excuse me, if anyone, sorry, I will ask you to raise your hands if you are in an opposition, because I have muted you. So is there any opposition? Seeing none, it carries unanimously. Moving on. Wow, we're getting through this meeting quite quickly. Moving on, we are going to be doing bylaws next. So bylaw number 7.1, bylaw number 1815, council procedural bylaw amendment. And I am just confirming I need this will be for first, second, and third reading. Oh, excuse me, before I start, I apologize. Sorry, Councillor Day, I will come to you in a moment. Just before we start this, I just need to read one thing. Mayor, please, excuse me. In accordance with Ministerial Order M083, some bylaws scheduled this evening that received their reading are also able to be considered for adoption in the same meeting. And I will, before I go to 7.1, I will go to Councillor Day because she had her hand up. Councillor Day, can you unmute yourself? There I am. You should be able to unmute yourself.
There we go. So my question is, what is expected if an amendment is desired? Based on our new procedure, because we're doing all 3 readings and possibly even adoption at the same meeting, there's not much opportunity for consideration of amendments, and I'm not clear what the process should be.
I will look to staff. Is there anyone on staff that could answer that question?
Yes, Mayor Martin, it's Selena here, Selena Williams. Yes, Councillor Day, the intent of this bylaw is to allow council to read bylaws of a fairly routine nature in readings, grouped in readings or grouped as bylaws and read together. If a bylaw requires an amendment, that would be an excellent opportunity for a councillor to request that the readings be held separately to allow for that amendment. With the proposed procedure bylaw amendment, those amendments can then happen at first, second, or third reading. Currently, our bylaw only allows an amendment to happen after a bylaw has received second and before it receives third. So this opens up opportunities for more flexibility for council when you do have bylaws that require amendment, but it also gives you the opportunity to read bylaws more efficiently, such as the ones you'll see coming up on the agenda later tonight.
If I could follow up, I do appreciate the efficiency. For example, when we're doing sewer connection bylaws, there's a number of LSAs that have to be amended. But in the case where we're looking at a procedure bylaw tonight, we're talking about doing all the readings at one time. So while it sounds like there's more opportunity, there's actually less because there's no time in between the reading and the adoption. And there's no different readings unless you are very quick on your feet to pull it immediately to everyone's attention. So it is actually making it so that the only time to amend a bylaw is at its introduction, because first, second, and third reading are all one.
Yes, should council choose to give all 3 readings in one motion, then the opportunity to amend is at introduction. But I would recommend if a bylaw is requiring amendment, that each reading be given separately. The bylaws that you mentioned, the sewer connection bylaws, are an excellent example of how this clause can be used. But if you look at the procedural bylaw amendment number 1A, gives any member the opportunity to request those to be read separately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Good questions. So I'm going to look for, so we're going to try and do this the same way that we've done it previous to electronic meetings, where I'll look for a mover and seconder, and I'll keep those 2 as we go through first, second, and third readings. So on 7.1, which is bylaw number 1815, may I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by, thank you, Councillor Kobayashi. So on first reading, is there anyone in opposition? Then let's do a we'll do a vote then. I'm going to unmute everybody. For some reason, my unmute button doesn't work. I think my mute does. Oh, there we go. Now it unmutes. Okay, so I'm going to go through the roll very quickly. So this is for first reading. Councillor Baxter.
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Opposed?
Thank you. Councillor Kobayashi.
I vote yay.
Councillor Logan.
In favor.
Councillor Jensen.
In favor.
Councillor Parkinson.
In favor.
Thank you. And myself, I'm voting in favor. So that motion passes. Now moving on to second, I have the same mover and seconder, and I will go to discussion. Is there any discussion under second reading? I did, and there was. That's why I was calling the vote. Seeing none, I'll call the vote on second reading. Is there any opposition? I will call the vote then. Councillor Baxter?
Point of order, I think Councillor Parkinson was trying to get your attention a bit earlier.
Okay, Councillor Parkinson, did you?
Yes, sorry, regretfully, I was waving a
want to
hand.
go to discussion? Sorry, were you in discussion?
I was waving a hand, but it didn't, apparently I'm gonna figure out which hand shows up. So me bad, part of the learning curve. I was just gonna say that I believe Councillor Day's not wrong. Some of this stuff maybe takes a little more time. When I read this, I appreciated the fact that we could take these stupid sewer bylaws and just whip them through quickly and efficiently instead of the way we've been dealing with them all. So I liked that. I saw the merit in the having to do some bylaws quickly and be able to do the readings all at once, but also that we could in fact discuss at first, second, or third reading, which I've been caught on myself since I've become a councillor, thinking I would have another chance to talk and not. So I sort of see there are some pitfalls here, and I'm wondering if this maybe isn't a bylaw that would benefit from just taking some thought. Maybe we could do first and second reading and finish it off another time rather than whip through it. To me, it's a little more complex than the sewer bylaws, but the multiple. So I saw this bylaw as having two purposes. One was to be able to whip through the boring and repetitive sewer bylaws efficiently, and secondly was to give us an opportunity to discuss and make amendments at numerous times during the process. And this would strike me as a bylaw that's more suited to the second than the first. So I'm not so sure we should whip through all the bylaw readings at once tonight. Although having said that, I haven't found anything in here that I disagree with. So.
Okay, thank you. I know our corporate officer was running back to her office because I believe she had something to comment on. So I'm just pausing.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Martin. Council can feel comfortable giving it all three readings tonight. If between tonight's meeting and April the 27th, council desires to make a change to the bylaw, third reading can be rescinded at that time and the bylaw can be amended. This bylaw has a statutory notice attached to it, and that notice has been provided to the public stating that council will be considering this on April the 27th.
Okay, that satisfies me.
Great. Is there any other discussion before I call the question? I'm just going to pause. I realized I went too fast last time, so I apologize if it seems like I'm being slow, but I'm going to try and slow myself down. I don't see any other, and I know, so I am going to call the question, but I am going to do it by roll because I don't believe we're going to have unanimous. So I will call the question on second reading. Councillor Baxter?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Day?
Opposed?
Councillor Kobayashi?
I vote yay.
Councillor Logan?
In favor?
Councillor Jensen?
In favor?
Councillor Parkinson?
In favor.
Mayor Martin votes in favor. Moving on to third reading. Another opportunity, same mover and seconder, another opportunity for discussion. Is there any discussion? Third reading? Seeing none, I will call the question, but I will call it by roll. Councillor Baxter?
In favor.
Councillor Day?
Opposed?
Councillor Kobayashi?
In favor.
Councillor Logan?
In favor?
Councillor Jensen?
In favor?
Councillor Parkinson?
In favor.
Mayor Martin's also in favor. So that motion passes. Moving on to 7.2, bylaw number 1788, land use amendment 3510 Wishart Road. May I have and I'm sorry, I just want to confirm, this is for adoption. So this is correct? Okay, so this is final. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Baxter, seconded by Councillor Jensen. Any discussion? Councillor Day?
Sorry, I just was wanting, I will be voting in opposition.
Okay.
So I just was ahead.
Okay, then I will thank you for letting me know. I will call the roll then. And Councillor Parkinson.
Sorry, just my concern on this is that it passes the zoning without tying it to all the commitments that were made to justify that zoning. And I understand those are all part of a separate process. I just worry that they're not linked. You know, they came in promising protection of green spaces and snake habitat and road grades and all sorts of good things that justified in council's mind approving this. And that's okay. I just don't want to see this missed and then have somebody else at some future date come along and say, this is the zoning, I can do it without addressing all the issues that were committed to as part of the presentation we had on the rezoning. That's my concern.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all the questions, and we'll do the roll. Councillor Baxter.
Sorry, but are we not going to get an answer to Councillor Parkinson's concern?
Yeah.
Well, we're in final, so I mean, yeah, I can look to staff.
Sorry, Rob, sorry, Mayor Martin, would you like me to interject here? It's tough to
Sure.
take a cue.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
So excellent question, Councillor Parkinson. I can completely understand your concern. One of the ways that the zoning promises are tied to the actual works is a couple of different things. We've got one mechanism of what was shown to council at the time of public hearing.
Oh, shoot. Hold on.
That's okay. I think I'm unmuted.
There you go. Sorry, my apologies, Brent.
Yeah, no problem. I just don't know when that went on. So I'll start again. One way is to tie in the zone consideration to the images shown at the time of council. So the park spaces that were shown, the covenant areas that were shown, the rough layout and context of the land uses assembled would be as shown. And then the wording in the zone consideration is to substantially comply. So that kind of establishes plus or minus a couple meters where those areas are and how that form and character looks. So that covers off the snake habitat intent, which will be covered in the development agreement. It covers off the open space and covenant intent, which will also be covered in the development agreement and is also captured in the shall substantially comply. But otherwise, the subdivision after this point will stand on its own. The development agreement will be specific as to the type of fencing, the preservation intent for the parkland, the frog habitat and crossing as per the environmental consideration that was submitted in concert with the zoning. So everything that council has seen ties into that framework of substantially comply. So that doesn't allow me any flexibility with terms of park space as well. So it should substantially comply and carry the test of time. I'm available for any other questions you may have or clarity if you need it.
Just looking to the screen, is there anyone else? Councillor Day, go ahead. You'll just have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I guess I'm trying not to stray too far from exactly what we're talking about, but there have been other issues where the concern has been, and they were recently raised, where the concern has been that the project was different from what was advertised to the public. And yet, when we looked into it again, it was determined that it was substantially compliant. So I'm not feeling a great deal of comfort with that phrase, substantially compliant, given that, you know, for example, the snake habitat could be, you know, almost disappear entirely if you're saying it's going to be within a couple meters of what was presented to us. You know, a couple meters would completely negate the snake habitat, for example.
A great question. So works in regards to environmental sensitivities, such as the snake's habitat, would be subject to monitoring at the time of any works occurring on site. So that habitat would have to meet the recommendations of the biologist, which are also captured in the development agreement, complete with intent. The critter corridor, excuse my term for it, but it's a culvert underneath the road and the connection of the two spaces across the lands. So the consideration today and the information that has been insofar presented to council doesn't go away. The consultants still need to monitor the project as the project moves forward. Yes, it might be different consultants than Patrick Lucy who offered that report, but any consultant that's working on it would have to base their recommendation from that starting point of that initial report. And so it would still hold true. It's all captured in the development agreement that's registered on title, which speaks to the preservation of the spaced habitat and the creation of that critter corridor. And then the density and massing all has to substantially comply to the image, which will show, and that's more along the lines of where a meter might shift or minus. Whereas a lot line is shown graphically in 2 dimensions, it may shift just a little bit, but again, the areas of the lots would have to comply. The general shape and conformity would have to apply. The critter habitats as well as the green space covenants would all have to comply. And that's all captured in the registered development agreement.
I will go, I have a list, so I will go Councillor Baxter, then Councillor Kobayashi. Councillor Baxter, you'll need to unmute yourself.
All right. Brent, are you saying that the development agreement is already registered?
The development agreement is necessary to be registered at 3rd reading prior to adoption of the bylaw by council. And tonight, and I'm just flipping through my other screen, this is the bylaw number 78, land use amendment for Wishart Road, and that this is the adoption statement tonight. So yes, it would be registered after 3rd and after public, capturing the intent insofar.
Thank you.
Councillor Kobayashi?
Yes, through the mayor, Brent, just give me a definition of what substantially comply means. Does that mean plus or minus 5%, plus or minus 2%? What does that mean?
That's a great question, and that's the devil's in the details, which is the same as Councillor Day's question. Substantially comply from a 2D graph essentially is a drawing without dimensions. So it shows that you have X amount of lots on one side of a road, Y amount on the other, 3 against Wishart Road, and parks in generally the locations as formed. We could expect, as we try to save a tree, for example, or preserve a rock outcrop, that we determine at the time of survey on the individual lots enablement, that line may need to move. However, if we looked at a visual graphic of that plan of subdivision as realized, it would almost need to mirror up with the plan as shown at the public hearing. There may be a couple of lots that needed to be adjusted just tangentially to miss a rock or whatnot, but the general framework for the lot layout and conformance of the land would need to comply. There's not a rule of thumb for 2%, 10%. I would say, though, personally, that 10% is outside of the normal substantially comply, and it would need to be within 2% of what was shown.
Okay, so thank you very much for clarifying that. So just a follow-on question on that. So who is actually accountable for making that decision then? Is that your planning staff then?
That befalls me, Councillor Kobayashi, and the planning staff is working through myself. And so anytime that I have to sign the subdivision for a plan, for example, I'd bring back that zoning plan and literally hold them up to a mirror to see how close they got.
Okay, thank you.
Pausing. Is there anyone else? Just looking for hands. Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you, Brent. First, that was the first question I had was, is the development agreement registered? And you're saying it is. And I guess that's where the term substantially comply comes in, because I don't think I see it in the actual bylaw we're passing tonight. I don't think the bylaw says anything about substantially complying with anything.
That's correctly right. The bylaw is just the citation for land use and density, which is what the consideration is before you.
Okay.
Again, I'm pausing. Anyone else? All right. I don't believe I have anybody else, so I will call the question then, and I will do the roll for this one. This is for final. Councillor, I will go backwards. Councillor Parkinson.
In favor.
Councillor Jensen.
In favor.
Counselor Logan.
In favor.
Thank you. Counselor Kobayashi.
In favor.
Counselor Day.
Opposed.
Counselor Baxter.
In favor.
Mayor Martin is in favor, so the motion passes. Moving on to 7.3, which is bylaw number 1803, Main Sewer LSA 657 Carindale Road. This is final reading. May I have a mover and second, please?
Move
by
final.
Second by Councillor Jensen. Discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, that passes unanimously. 7.4, bylaw number 1804, West Sewer LSA 657, final reading. We have a moved by Councillor Kobayashi, seconded by Councillor Baxter. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Any in opposition? None. 7.5, bylaw number 1805, Main Sewer LSA 323 Wishart Road. Oh, excuse me, that has been abandoned. What do I do with that? Sorry, so I need a motion to abandon. Moved by Councillor Day, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Any in opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Excuse me. 7.6, bylaw number 1806, West Sewer LSA 322 Wishart Road. This is to be abandoned as well. Moved by Councillor Day, seconded by Councillor Jensen. Any discussion? Councillor Parkinson.
I guess I just out of curiosity, what happened here? How far did we get in the process? And is obviously some work went into it on behalf of the city. What happens if they come back next week and change their mind and want to apply again? Is it we just do more work, or how does that work?
Mayor Martin, I can answer that.
Thank you.
What basically, Councillor Parkinson, it is just abandoned. However, the work is still done. So if they came back literally tomorrow, we would just pick it back up. We'd have to start again with the first reading of the consideration. However, the staff component of the project is done. We've provided a refund to the person based on economic reasons for the COVID matter at hand, but we are able to pick it back up and just start again at what first reading.
And this made more sense than just stalling it, leaving it where it was?
We wanted to give the owner the option. And they're the ones that elected to just fully rescind all of their considerations. We've provided them a letter that basically says if they wish to recommence and better times, that we're willing to work with them on that initiative.
Okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will call the question. Is there any in opposition? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. 7.7, bylaw number 1808. This is for first, second, and third reading. This is Main Sewer LSA 3149A Metchosin Road. And I'm sorry, Selena. Oh, and adoption, excuse me. So this will be for first, second, third, and adoption. And as I mentioned to you, that this was through Ministerial Order M083, which allows us to do that on the same day. Looking for introduction. Actually, so I'll look for an introduction. I'll move the motion. Councillor Day, thank you, has moved it. Councillor Logan, I will call the question on first reading. Any in opposition?
Point of order, I believe Councillor Day has a question.
Councillor Day, normally we would do discussion after second. Is this?
Not anymore.
There isn't a discussion on introduction? That's why I was going to come to you on second, but do you want to discuss it before
no,
I even?
Sorry, this is the one where there is a typo in the agenda for the recommendation.
Thank
so
you,
I just wanted to make sure that you understood that we are talking about 3149A Metchosin Road. And unfortunately, it says B in the recommendation.
Okay, thank you for catching that, Councillor Day. I thought you wanted to speak to it. Now you mentioned it to me before, so my apologies. So, and I'm sorry, Councillor Day, you saw that it was B in the actual motion?
In the recommendation on the agenda, it refers
Yes,
to 3149B.
yeah,
Nice,
thank,
nice pickup, Cynthia. You're reading these a lot more carefully than I am, I
yeah,
gotta tell you.
that is really tough. Yes, so thank you, staff have made that correction. So just on introduction, I'm going to call the question. Is there any in opposition? Hearing none, the first passes. On second, I'm keeping the same mover and seconder, and I will go to discussion. Just confirming, Councillor Day, you didn't want to discuss it.
No.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Any in opposition? So that passes unanimously. On third reading, any discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Any in opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And finally, on adoption, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Any in opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Before I begin with 1809, was it the same problem at all, Councillor Day? Or was it 7.7?
No, 1809 is fine. It's just for the central, whereas the other one was for the main.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
Uh,
sure it wasn't the same error that
Nope.
you had noted. Okay,
No, it's
excellent.
correct.
Then this will be for first, second, third, and adoption as well. 1809, which is Central Sewer LAS Enlargement 3149A Metchosin Road. May I have a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Kobayashi, seconded by Councillor Baxter. On first reading, any in opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. On second, any discussion? Seeing none, any in opposition? That passes. On third, discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Any in opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And finally, on adoption. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any in opposition? No in opposition, that passes unanimously. 7.9, bylaw number 1810, main sewer LAS enlargement 3149B, Metchosin Road, first, second, third reading and adoption. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Logan, seconded by Councillor Jensen. On first reading, any in opposition? None, so that passes. On second, discussion. Hearing none, I will call the question. Any in opposition? None, no one is in opposition. On third reading, discussion. I apologize that it seems like I'm taking longer than it. I'm just being patient. I'll call the question. Any in opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. And then finally, adoption. Discussion. Seeing none, all those, excuse me, I still want to say all in favor. All in opposition? All in opposition. Anyone in opposition? Hearing none, that passes unanimously as well. Moving on to 7.10, which is bylaw number 1811, which is Central Sewer LAS Enlargement 3149B. This is first, second, third reading and adoption. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Jensen, seconded by Councillor Day. Is there on first reading, any in opposition? That passes. On second reading, any discussion? Seeing none, any in opposition? Seeing none. On third reading, that passes, excuse me, second reading passes. On third reading, discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any in opposition? Oh, excuse me, sorry, Councillor Day or Councillor Baxter, I saw your hand. Were you looking to discuss?
Sorry, just scratching an itch.
Okay, okay. It's like it's becoming like an auction where you're not allowed to move. And I'm sorry, was I in second or third? I was just finishing third. So on third reading, any in opposition? Seeing none, That passes. And then finally on adoption, any discussion? Seeing none, any in opposition? Seeing none, that passes. There is no in camera for this evening.
Move
There's
adjournment.
There's, thank you. Councillor Parkinson has moved to adjourn. Don't go anywhere though after I call the vote. All those in any opposition for adjournment? None. We are starting at 6:30 for committee of the whole. How do you want